Momentum in heavy industry is difficult to stop. Legacy manufacturing systems carry immense physical mass, making rapid shifts incredibly difficult. This graphic maps out Tata Motors' sheer scale. We are looking at a manufacturer backed by a $128 billion parent conglomerate, executing operations across more than 125 countries. For decades, that massive footprint was dedicated entirely to the internal combustion engine. This means deeply entrenched supply chains, highly specialized assembly lines, and a global workforce trained to build mechanical, gas-powered vehicles. Scaling a modern software company requires rewriting code. Pivoting a century-old physical manufacturing empire of this size requires tearing down and rebuilding physical reality. Today, the transition to zero-emission mobility is an absolute global mandate. The internal combustion engine is being legislated out of existence. To survive this, Tata Motors initiated an aggressive countermeasure, a total strategic pivot toward electric vehicles. Executing this requires actively dismantling the historical supply chains and core competencies that made them profitable in the first place. We have to ask how a legacy corporation systematically architects a survival strategy on this scale without collapsing its current operations. This 3D model represents a macro-to-micro strategic audit. We will use it to deconstruct Tata's master plan, moving from massive external pressures down to internal factory operations. To understand the specific vehicles a company decides to build tomorrow, you must map the invisible market pressures acting upon it today. This 6-panel grid is the pestle framework, representing the outermost layer of macroeconomic pressure the company must navigate. The political force reveals massive government subsidies, specifically FAME II incentives in India, engineering a profitable environment for localized EV adoption. This pairs with an environmental mandate, an intense global push to reach net zero emissions and reduce corporate carbon footprints. Legal enforcement locks this in through aggressively tightening global safety and emission standards. Simultaneously, technological breakthroughs in battery cell density have finally made the electric transition commercially viable at scale. Meanwhile, the economic vulnerability of legacy vehicles is increasing, tied directly to fluctuating fossil fuel prices and global inflation. And the social shift is clear. Consumer buying power is aggressively moving toward eco-friendly mobility solutions. When aggregating these 6 factors, the external environment has hostile engineered the death of the combustion engine. The EV pivot is a mathematical necessity for survival. These massive external pressures translate directly into intense internal boardroom conflict. Top leadership must balance severely conflicting, high-stakes expectations to survive. This stakeholder power interest matrix charts how leadership categorizes competing demands. In the top right, manage closely quadrant, investors hold high power, demanding immediate, high-margin returns. Contrast this with the top left, keep satisfied quadrant, where powerful regulators demand massive capital expenditure. This creates a paradox. Management must spend billions on unprofitable future technology for regulators, while simultaneously delivering record quarterly profits to prevent an investor revolt. Stepping one layer deeper from the macro environment, we examine the specific trenches of the automotive industry using Porter's 5 forces. Competitive rivalry is severe. Tata operates in a highly saturated market, fighting a daily price war against entrenched global players to secure every single sale. That high rivalry, paired with high bargaining power from consumers, squeezes standard profit margins to their absolute limits. But the shift toward battery electric platforms introduces a new, highly dangerous threat: the bargaining power of suppliers. Building an EV shifts dependency away from internal mechanical engineering and hands it directly to external global semiconductor and battery cell manufacturers. Whoever controls these raw materials wields disproportionate power over automakers needing to hit production targets. Tata Motors must survive a brutal consumer price war on the showroom floor while actively migrating onto a completely new, highly constrained global supply chain. To see how the company physically executes and funds this transition, we look inward at their value chain. The primary activities, the logistics, operations, and sales of building traditional combustion vehicles are the company's current cash cow. Because of the squeezed profit margins and intense rivalry we mapped earlier, Tata must wring absolute maximum cost efficiency out of this legacy process. The cash generated from legacy assembly line operational efficiency is directly funneled into support activities, specifically the massive R&D required for EV technology. The legacy gas-powered business is being driven to peak efficiency for one distinct purpose: to act as the bankroll for the clean, high-tech EV future. This brings us to the ultimate output, the Ansoff matrix. This chart categorizes how a company decides to grow given its constraints. First is the defensive play, market penetration. Tata aggressively maximizes market share in existing internal combustion categories to maintain critical cash flow. Next is the offensive pivot, product development. They launch next-generation models like the Nexon EV, specifically to capture the massive government subsidies we identified in the pestle analysis. Then comes market development, expanding the geographic footprint by taking these newly developed EVs into emerging markets across Southeast Asia and Europe. Finally, the ultimate risk mitigation move, diversification. Tata invests completely outside of car manufacturing, building software-as-a-service platforms and physical charging infrastructure. By controlling the actual charging ecosystem, Tata directly neutralizes the high supplier power that threatens automakers in the electric mobility sector. The completed Ansoff matrix shows that Tata is actively mutating its entire corporate structure to survive these converging market forces. We have moved from the macroeconomic external rings through the industry trenches, straight down to the operations on the factory floor. Effective corporate strategy is not a single brilliant idea. It is the rigorous, systematic alignment of undeniable external realities with specific internal capabilities. Tata Motors provides a precise blueprint. Heavy industry must ruthlessly disrupt its own legacy operations today, or be destroyed by the regulatory and economic demands of tomorrow.